Masechet Yoma, Daf 62. We're going to hopefully finish the fifth perek and begin the sixth one. In this case, it's actually quite interesting because the end of the fifth perek ties directly into the theme of the next one, of the sixth perek. The sixth perek we're going to see is talking about the details of the two saridine. We're going to learn the very interesting halacha that the two saridine have to be identical. They have to look the same, be the same height. And we're going to see the derivation of that. We'll also see some other cases, about 4 other cases. You have 2 animal pairs, and they have to be identical. So this is very interesting. It's like in particle physics. You have entangled particles, and so the state of one affects the state of the other. That's what happens to these pairs of animals. They have to be they're joined in their states. Okay, this is related to the beginning of this stuff as well, because the 2 sa'idim that we bring on Yom Kippur, they have to be joined together in a lottery. You have to have done a lottery and decided between each of these 2 sa'idim which will be for which. Now, what happens if one dies or one gets lost? You can't just go and get another one and replace it. You have to do a new lottery, which means you have to get 2 more sa'idim, do a lottery on them, right? And then you'll take one or the other, whichever one you need, right? But you can't, if you have Selah Hashem, Selah Azazel, and the Selah Hashem, I'm going to bring our case as the example, the cases that we've been talking about now. Let's say I had a Sa'ir La Hashem. The Sa'ir La Hashem is the one that we've been discussing these past few dapim. That's the one you take the blood and you sprinkle it in Kodesh Kodashim. Let's say that blood spills. So we know what to do. You bring another Sa'ir. You can't just bring another Sa'ir from the street and just slaughter it. You have to bring 2 more Sa'irim, do another Goral. Whichever one ends up being La Hashem, that one you slaughter and you bring the blood, and you continue from where you left off, or you continue from that stage. So now this brings up a very interesting question. Let's say it spills 2, 3, 4 times. So you bring another Sa'id. With every Sa'id La Hashem, you're going to designate another Sa'id La Azazel. What you end up having is more than one Sa'id La Azazel, right? You can have 2 or 3, depending on how many times you have to bring it. So the question we begin today with is, what happens if you have more than one Sa'id La'azazel? Which one should you use? We already established, it says Oto, you only send one La'azazel. You're not going to send a whole herd of animals out to Azazel just because you had to do many Goralot. So we have a machloket. The first one that you did all the way in the beginning of the day, that's the official Sa'il Azazel. The other ones were just replacements. Okay, so the replacements, what can we do? But the first one is the real one. Fine. Rav Shimi says, no, as you do the next one, the first ones get disqualified, and it's the last one that becomes the official Sa'il Azazel. Let's explain each of them. Bishlama Rav Shimi bar Hashem Mishemed Rava. Damar Acharon Meshaleach. We understand the one that says it's the last one because that's the one whose counterpart was used to complete the kapara, right? In the case that, let's say the Sa'il Hashem spilled once, twice, whatever. So the last Sa'il Hashem is the one that you completed, right? You sprinkle it on the Mizbech and you finish. Its counterpart, Sa'il Azazel, is the main one because the end of the process is the most important, according to Rav Shimi. Fine, we understand that logic. Rav Papi, why would you say the first one? Right, the first one was like ancient history. Now we're using this one. So the answer is he follows the opinion of Rabbi Yosef, the Tana, who always says the mitzvah is with the Rishon. Okay, so this seems to be a famous thing that Rabbi Yosef said, that you always follow the first one. Where did he say this? We're not sure. We have 2 possibilities. Hey, Rabbi Yosef, ilem Rabbi Yosef de kupot, ditnan, Rabbi Yosef omer 3 kupot shel 3 se'im. Sheben tormin talishka, v'ya katub alehen alef bet gimel. If you remember from Masechet Shekalim, there were 3 different collection baskets for the Machasita Shekel because people came at different times and they would fill one and use it. And then in the meantime, other people that came, they would fill up the second one and use it. And so according to the Biyoseh, he said, he had written on them Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. and you would use the first one first. V'tanya amar Rabbi Yosef, lama katuv alehem aleph bet gimel. Why do you have to write letters on them? Just whatever, fill them up, and whichever, you pick one at random and use that first. No, I want to use the first one that was filled up. I want to use that first. And so we're going to take that one first. The Kohen will take some of the coins in there and use that to buy the first round of animals that will be for communal sacrifices. And he says, mitzvah barishon. Yep, yes, you should use the first one first. So to here, he says, use the first sa'ir that was designated, Azazel, that's the first one. So he follows we're following it. Rabbi Yosef, that's his rule. Now we say, no, what? This is not example. That's not a good example. It's not a good source for machazit hashekel. Maybe at the time that the first one is ready, the second and third baskets are not ready, right? Because we wait till the first one's full, then he takes some of them. It's actually when he takes the coins, that's when they get designated and says, okay, you can bring them to the farm and go buy korbanot for the Bet HaMikdash. The second and third one, they weren't yet collected from. So they're not ready. So it's not because the first is always more important. It's because the second and third are just not ready yet. So that's not really a source that Rabbi says in general, you should pick the first. A better source is rather this. We also learn this. It's good. We're going in order. Mafrish pischo ve'avad, hifrish acher tachtav, ואחר כך נמסע הראשון, הרי שניהם עומדים. איזה מן שירצה יקריב דברי חכמים. Let's say someone separated a korban pesach, right? He's very excited. A few days before, I'm going to use this one, this lamb for my korban pesach. And then, for whatever reason, he designated another, got lost. Let's say he got lost. And designated another one. And then the first one was found. And now you have two animals that are both designated as Korban Pesach. You only need one. So which one should you use? Chachamim say, whichever one you want, whichever one you like better, right? One that's a little fatter and juicier, take that one. Rabbi Yosef Omer, Misvah barishon, v'im haya sheni b'bchar mimenu yebi'enu. So Rabbi Yosef says, better to use the first one, right? The first one, that's the main one that you designated. So that's the more important. If the second one is really much better, okay, fine. But really says mitzvah is better with the first one. So too, that's his general rule. We can apply that to sa'ir la'azazel, that in the case where you have multiple sa'irim la'azazel, you should use the first one according to the Rabbi Yosef, the last one according to the other opinions. Hadran alach, hosi'u lo. Okay, chazakim u'beruchim for completing that perek, a tremendous amount of important details to understand avodah much better. And now the next perek will focus on the sa'irim. Shenei sa'irei Yom Kippurim misvatan, shiyu shenehem shavin b'mar'eh u'b'koma u'b'damim u'b'likichatan ke'echad. The two sa'irim have to be identical. They have to look the same, they have to be the same height, and they have to be the same worth, same monetary worth. And you have to buy them at the same time together. All that is lechatechila. B'di'avad, what if it's not so? It's hard to find. You didn't get a chance. You bought one and you didn't have in stock. So it's okay if you bought them separately or if they look different. B'di'avad, it's okay. If they don't look the same or if you bought them on different days, b'di'avad, it's okay. This is a very interesting halacha. We're going to see the derivation of it, but I think there's an important conceptual idea behind it, which is worth discussing for a second, which is these two sa'irim really represent Bnei Israel. They represent each of us. And the two sa'irim are, what is our fate going to be this coming year? What's going to be the deen that's going to be decided? Are we going to be able to be LaHashem, remain in the land of Israel and be successful, or LaAzazel represents going into exile, being punished, right? This is our future is on the balance here. And the idea is that you can't tell, right, just from the same are exactly the same, right? Meaning that we are in the beginning, we're equally balanced. It's a fair judgment, and then the decision on Yom Kippur decides which goes this way and which goes that way. There's no preconceived notion or something built in that's pushing a person one way or another. It's up to us, really, our free will, to decide to be good or to be bad, to have good things or the opposite. So I think that's the idea behind. These are exactly the same, right? Don't blame your circumstances of how your genes or some preconceived predetermination for what happens to you. We have to take responsibility. Okay, so with that in mind, let's see what happens now. Met ehad mehem im ad shelo higriel met yikach zug lasheni. So let's say we have two selidim. I say we're gonna use these two selidim. So we designate them as a two selidim, but we didn't do the lottery yet. And then one dies. No problem. Just get another one, right? It doesn't matter, because even though you didn't buy them at the same day, or even if they don't look alike, but the avad, it's okay. You didn't do the lottery yet, so you could just bring any other. But if you did the lottery already, and let's say the one that was going to be Lashem died, now you can't just bring another random Sayyid and say, okay, you'll be Lashem, because you can't designate it to be Lashem. It has to be decided so through a lottery. You have to go through the lottery process. Now the other one already had the lottery, so you can't make a lottery with one that was already designated Azazel. Therefore, you have to bring two new animals and do another lottery, start all over again. Now, when you do the new lottery, now you're going to have two Lazazel, right? What do you do with these two? Ve'omar im shel shem met. The language here really means that im shel shem met. If the one that was Lashem died, then you should say the following, because you know which one's which. The new one that I just brought, Shel Shem, will be instead of the one that died, and I'm going to use the old one of the Azazel. ואם של עזאזל מת, זה שעלה עליו הגורל לעזאזל יתקיים תחתיו. והשני יראה עד שיסתאב וימכר. And if it was the one that was Azazel that died, then you bring then you say this one that became Azazel in the second lottery, that was chosen to be Azazel in the second lottery, will be instead of the one that died. And the other one, the other animal, the one that would be Lashem in the second lottery, what do you do with it? You just let it graze until it gets a blemish, and then you sell it, right? And with the money, you buy other korbanot. So no problem. For korban nedava. So you'll have one from the first pair and one from the second pair, but both were chosen by two separate lotteries. So that's how you do it. Now, why do you let it? Why not let it go until it dies, right? How come you're allowed to do such a thing? In general, a korban hatat, which this is, a korban hatat has to, if it becomes pasul, then it dies. But that's only true of a korban hatat of a yachid, right? A korban chatat yachid, like for example, someone tries to bring korban chatat and then the owner dies or whatever, right? So that korban, you can't sell it. But this one is different. Shen chatat sibur meta. This is a chatat for the sibur. So therefore, it has a different law than the yachid. And yes, you can let it graze till it gets a blemish, and then you can sell it. You don't have to let it die. However, to be omer tamut. No, it has to be left to die. You cannot sell it and buy anything with it. Okay, good. So those are super interesting cases. This language of, and you'll say, if it was this, if it was that might be relevant to a case where you're not sure, right? Maybe they somehow got mixed up and you don't know even which is which. So then you could use a tenai like that. Ve'od amar Rabbi Yehuda said something else. Nishpach hadam yemut hamishtalech. Met hamishtalech yishafech hadam. This is the case that we ended the previous perek on. It's if you had one Sayyid LaHashem and you took the blood and the Kohen, while he's sprinkling it inside, it spills, Nishpach Adam, that's the Sayyid LaHashem. Then what do you do with the outside one? Yamut HaMishtaleach, the one that was that was paired with it, right? They're like entangled particles. And when one becomes no good, the other also cannot be used anymore. Meta mishtaleach, if for some reason the Seila Azazel died in the middle while he's doing the Korban Hashem, you then pour out the blood. No good. If that one's not alive, you can't use this one. Pour out the blood and go get two new ones. So it's really fascinating to see how the halacha intertwines the fates of both of these together with each other. All right, good. Now, that's the Mishnah. Gemara explains, Tenora Banan. We're going to bring the source for this one, and we're going to bring 3 or 4 other cases of paired animals. We always think of the Seila Azazel as the paired animal, but actually there's lots of other ones too. Yikach shene se'ire azim, me'ot se'ire shenayim. The pasuk really could have said here in Acharemot regarding Yom Kippur, it says Met Adavim said Yikach. It could have said se'ire azim. Take some animals. Right? What's that? And I know plural. What's the minimum of a plural? 2 is the minimum, right? If two people, you still say use a plural. So we always assume the minimum. So even if you didn't have the word sheneh, I would assume that you bring 2 animals. So why do you need to say the word sheneh? So that comes to add sheneh says paired. Right? That's 2 that they have to be identical. Good. Now, if I had that, just that, well, maybe I would think, we'll ask this in a second, that it's obligatory. And if I didn't do it, even b'diavad, it's no good. That's me'akev. How do I know that it's not me'akev? Talmud Amar, sa'ir riba. In Pesukim 9 and 10, you see v'akrib, and then sa'ir. And then it says, ha-sa'ir asher Allah. Okay, we know we're talking about the sa'ir. That's what this whole thing is about. So you don't have to say it again and again. So the fact that you say it multiple times, sa'ir, and sa'ir is inclusive language and says any sa'ir, right? So therefore, lecha techila, Sheneh says they should be identical. Sa'ir says any sa'ir. So b'diavad, if you couldn't find it, it's okay. Good. Now, Tameh de Rebbe Rachamana. Now we're analyzing this braita. And you say, the only reason that we say b'diavad it's okay is because Rachamana, that means Hashem, the Torah, added extra words to tell me that it's not me'akev. So if it didn't say Sayyid, I would have assumed that if it's not identical, they're pasul. But why would I assume that? How, in general, if the Torah says something once, I know it's a mitzvah, but it's not me'akev. Only when it says it twice, then we saw that rule already before. It says it twice, then not only is that the chetechila supposed to do, but even b'diavad, if you don't do it, it ruins the whole process. So I really don't need Sayyid because I only have one time it says Sheneh. Fine, I know lechatechila I should do it. So really I don't need the Sayyid to tell me b'diavad it's okay. Well, here's why. I actually would have thought, it doesn't say Sheneh only once. Even if it said it twice, it would be enough. But actually it says it 3 times. I put them in blue here, right? Sheneh sa'idim, Sheneh sa'idim. So you see, because it says Sheneh twice, even 3 times, I would have assumed, it's not only a mitzvah, it's necessary. If I didn't do it, it's pasul, it's me'akev. So that's why, because to counter the sheneh, the 3 shenehs, that's why it says sa'ir and sa'ir to tell me b'diavad, it's okay. All right, good. Now you could wonder, why add all the extra words and then have extra words just to take them away? It's just don't put any of those. Don't put any sa'idim and only put 1 sheneh, and you don't need any of it. So pashta de Rebbe Rachamana sa'ir sheneh lamali chad lemareh chad lekoma v'chad ledamim. I do something very useful with the 3 sheneh words. That one tells me they have to look alike. One is that they have to be the same height. And one is have to have the same monetary value. So that's why we need 3 words, sa'idim. And interestingly, we don't bring a source that they have to be bought on the same day from here. Okay, good. So that we dealt with, that's the sa'idim of Yom Kippur. Now we understand the halacha. The chetechila, they should be identical, but the avad, it's okay if they're not. Okay, but now we understand the rules of the methodology of interpretation. We're going to apply it to 3 other cases. Here's number 1. Tanya mehachi gabe kibse mesora yikach sheneh chebasim. Someone who becomes a mesora on his 8th day after becomes tahor, he brings 2 kebasim, and it says the word sheneh. So the same thing. Mi'ot kebasim shenayim. It could have just said yikach kebasim. I would have assumed it's two. Matam odoma sheneh, shu shenehem shavin. The word sheneh teaches that they have to be identical. Menayin she'af al pi shen shenehem shavin kesherin. Tamud lomar kebes riba. So how do I know that b'di'avad it's okay if they're not identical? Because in Pesukim 12 and 13, in Vayikra 14, it says, and then again, shachat hakebes. It could have just said, v'shachat oto. You don't have to say the word. I know what we're talking about. So kebes, those are inclusionary words, and that comes to say, yeah, sheneh is l'chetechila. But if you didn't do it, I want to include more, it's fine, even if they look different. Hold on. Why would I even assume to begin with that it's me'akev, right? If you just had one word sheneh, then that teaches that the chetechila, but doesn't have a repetition. So if you have something just once, it's a mitzvah. It's not necessarily me'akev. I don't really need kebes to tell me otherwise. The answer is Sakada Techamina Tihiyeh Ketiv. I would have thought in the beginning of that perek it says Zot Tihiyeh Torah Mesorah. I could have just said Zot Torah Mesorah. What's Tihiyeh? Tihiyeh means very precisely. Do exactly everything in this list has to be done exactly, or else it's no good. So from the word Tihiyeh, you're right. It doesn't say Sheneh here, but from a different way, a different marker says precisely. So I would have thought yes, you have to be. It have to be identical, and it's me'akev. Therefore, the word kebes comes to teach no, the opposite. Okay, now we have the same question. So don't write tehiyeh and don't write kebes, and I'll just have one time it says shenei kebasim, and I'll assume lechatechila. But yes, but the avad, it's okay. So why do I need this kebes at all? Once I have kebes, what do I need tihiyeh? For everything else, all the other items that are mentioned in Mesorah, I need the word tihiyeh to tell me, yes, precisely, do it exactly. But kebes says, except this one law, this one can be, b'di'avad, it's okay. Good. That is case number 2. Now, another one. Also regarding Mesorah, there's another pair, besides a pair of animals that a rich person brings. Everyone brings a pair of birds. Siporim, me'ot siporim, shenayim, matamodoma shetehen shavot. So it could have just said he brings birds. I would have assumed that means the minimum, which is 2. Why does it say sheteh siporim? So that they have to be equal birds. Shmenayin shafa pi shenan shavot kesherot. Tamodoma sipor. And how do I know that? B'di'avad, it's okay if you brought them, if they're not identical. Pesukim 4 and 5. One says siporim, another one says again, hasharat hasipor ha'echat. So therefore, those inclusionary words comes to say, if they don't look the same, it's still b'di'avad, it's still valid. Now, Tama de Rabbi Chamana, Halada Rabbi Chamana, Pesu. You're getting the hang of this, right? We're following the same pattern. So the reason is because, so you're telling me the reason why it's okay is because it says Sipor, and the Rachamana, right? The Torah includes it. But if it didn't, then it would be Pesuloti Kaba Minalan. Why are you assuming in the first place that it's Me'akev? If it just says something once, it's only a mitzvah. It doesn't say, it says it once, same as before, it's the same tihiyeh. The word tihiyeh is the whole parasha Mesorah, including all the details. I might have thought tihiyeh means precisely this way. Yes, it is makev. So that's why sipor comes to undo it. Fine. If I already know that you're going to add sipor to tell me that b'di'avad is okay, why tell me tihiyeh to say it's not okay to begin with? Talking about all the other details. So all the details are precise because the word says to word tihiyeh, except therefore the siporim and the kebasim of the Mesorah, those b'di'avad can be not identical, and that would still be fine. All right, good. So that's so far 3 examples. Now another one. Tamid of every day that we bring, one in the morning, one at night. It says the word kebasim. Today's Rosh Chodesh. We just read it today, right? Shenei kebasim b'nei shana. So miut kebasim shenayim. If it only said kebasim, I would have assumed it means 2. Matom adomas shenayim, right? Kebasim shenayim. Why do I need that? So two says shu shavin, that they have to be identical. Very interesting. Now b'diavad, if they're not identical, still valid? Yes. Talmud lomar keves keves riba. It says the word keves, right? Keves ha'achad, the keves ha'sheni, taseh ben harbaim. So it says the word keves twice as inclusionary words. It could have just said oto. Ul misvah hachi nami deba'inan keves riba. Fine. So it comes to include. Now, but we can learn from this that there is a mitzvah to bring even though b'diavad it's okay if it in. I mean, there is a mitzvah to make them identical. Is that true? Is there even a mitzvah? And we say no. Okay, so this is actually not going to be a good example. Hahu mibaya le'lechetanya shenayim layom keneged hayom. So the words shenayim layom ola tamid, right, comes to teach me that they have to be done with the sun. Wherever the sun is shining, you have to do shechita of the keves in the opposite place. We're going to explain further. Really, is shenayim layom talking about the place of where you do shechita, or maybe it's just telling me there you have to do it 2 a day. This is the basic chova. Now that pasuk already is talking about the basic need and basic necessity. So this other pasuk shenayim layom, that's talking about the placement. Kesad tamid shel shachar haya nishchat al keren sifonit ma'aravit al tabat sheniya, ושל בין הרביים היה נשחט על כן מזרחית צפונית על טבעת שנייה. So here's a better picture. In the Bet HaMikdash, to the north of the Mizbeach, this is the Mizbeach, this is facing north, there were 24 rings. These rings would be used to hold down the animal's neck while they were doing shechita. There are 24 of them because there were 24 clans of Kohanim, so each one had one designated that this was theirs that they use during their week when they come to serve, except for Korban Tamid. Korban Tamid was always done in this ring and this ring. Which one is which? So if this is north, so in the morning, the sun is shining from the east. Now, if it's shining from the east, there's a wall here. So if you did it over here, the sun would be blocked by that wall. So instead, in the morning, we use the westernmost ring so that the sun will shine right onto it. And that's kind of symbolically showing this is the morning one. See, this morning sun is shining right on here. And the afternoon, when the sun is in the west, so then it will not be seen, it will shine over the west and reach the east. It will be hard to reach here. This is blocked, but it will reach the east. So in the afternoon, you do it on the eastern side. And that is what we learn from the words shenayim layom. The word yom could also mean like daytime or sunlight. And that's what it means here. So therefore, we cannot use this word to teach me that they need to be identical. Okay, last example, musafin shel Shabbat, vaday tzrichin sheyu shenehen shavin. Right? Yom Shabbat, shenech basim shana. So it says shenech basim regarding Shabbat. And so yes, the musafin, the two animals of musafim, do have to be identical. Okay, Rambam does not bring this halacha. Interestingly, perhaps he has a different reading of this Talmud. All right, so good. Now we have about 4 examples of paired animals that must be identical. And now we go, learn one last baraita. Teno Rabbanan, Shene Se'ire Yom HaKippurim, Sheshechatan Bachus, Ad Shelo Higril Alehen, Hayav Al Shenehem. There's a general rule called Shechute Chutz. If I take a consecrated animal and I do shechita outside the courtyard, outside the Bet HaMikdash, no good, right? That's punishable by karet. So these 2 se'irim of Yom Kippur, if the Kohen, anyone did shechita outside before you did the goral, then you were chayav on both of them because they're already consecrated to be korbanot. So that's a problem. However, interestingly, mishehigrir alehem chayav al shel Shem upatur al shel Azazel. After you do the lottery, one of them is going to be shel Shem. That one is a korban, right? It's slaughtered, it's sprinkled on the mizbech and everything. That one, if you after you do the lottery. If you do that shechita on that outside, that would be chayav karet. But the one that's azazel actually becomes no longer consecrated as a sacrifice. Azazel, Korban Azazel is not a sacrifice. You don't do shechita, you don't collect the blood, you don't put the blood on the mizbeach, you take the whole animal and you send it out. So therefore, it's not actually a sacrifice. And so if you did shechita outside, it's not what you're supposed to do with it. But if you did do shechita outside, not chayav karet. Okay, so that's a super interesting braita. Now, ad shelo igril alehem chayav al shenehem lemai hazu. We have a question on this, on the first statement. Before you do the goral, the lottery, and you slaughter them, you are chayav. But why? What are they good for? In other words, since they're not prepared yet, you didn't designate which one's which, right? So they're not actually ready to be sacrifices. So therefore, since they can't be used, why should you be chayav if you slaughter them outside? The answer is because you actually have 3 seidim on Yom Kippur. 2 that are the pair, La Hashem and La Azazel, and there's another said that's going to be a musaf. That's the same sa'id of musaf that you'd bring, for example, on Shemini Aseret, on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur also. So the animals are not distinguishable. You could right now, you didn't do the goral yet, you could take any one of these 3 and make it the musaf. So therefore, since it's ready right now, without doing anything else to be a musaf, that's why if you do shechita outside, you are chayav. Fine. ומאי שנה לסעיר הנעשה בפנים, דלא מחוסר הגרלה, לסעיר הנעשה בחוץ תמיד לחזה, דמכסה עבודת היום. Question on that. What's the difference between the one that's going to be for Musaf and the other 2? So you say the other 2 you're still missing the lottery. You didn't do the lottery yet, so therefore, since you didn't do the lottery, they can't be used, and that's why it's that's why you would be not chayav on them. In other words, if you knew which one was which, the only reason you're chayav on all 3 is because any of the 3 could be used. But let's say you already knew which one, so the other 2 are not into hagrala yet, so they're not ready to be sacrificed. Hold on, the one that's going to be for musaf is also, it's called bachutz because it's brought outside of the kodesh, right? The one that's going to be Hashem was inside the kodesh. So the one that's for musaf is also not ready because you can't do it yet. You don't bring the musaf until after you do the avodah of Yom Kippur. So you can't bring it in the morning. So actually it's not ready. It actually depends on, first you have to bring the lottery, then you have to do all the sprinklings, and then you can bring the musaf, korban musaf, right? So it's missing it's missing that it's not ready for the day yet. Okay. So we have a general rule: if you have a korban that cannot be brought yet, then you're not chayav on shechutechos. It's called mechasere avodat hayom. For example, let's say an animal is only 7 days old, can't bring it until it's 8 days old. Or if you have a korban pesach, right, and you bring it 2 days before, so it doesn't get included in this prohibition. So this one also is not ready to be sacrificed, so it shouldn't be prohibited. It shouldn't be karet. Kasavar Rab Chisda and mechusar zeman lebo bayom. Rab Chisda says a general rule: this law of mechusar zeman only applies if it's another day. You can't bring this the entire day. But this korban musaf, you're going to bring it later in the day. So yes, right now you still have some prerequisites to do, but since it's eligible to be a korban sometime today, it's not called mechusar zeman, and therefore any of these 3 sa'irim potentially could be the sa'ir for the musaf. And so if someone would slaughter any of them before the lottery, since it could be korban musaf, that would be shechutei chutz, and that person would be chayav karet. All right, that's a good place to end. Baruch Adonai Olam, amen ve'amen.